But when Trump did respond to Kirkuk, the base getting hit, and the Baghdad embassy being attacked, he responded quite strongly. And at that point, the Iranians understood what the red lines were. Iran may be an opponent of the U.S., but they're not suicidal, and they de-escalated dramatically. So clearly that was going to happen. The fact that the Iranians knocked down this civilian plane, an incredible tragedy, a huge mistake, and lied about it, has now put them under even more pressure, including from American allies in Europe, the Canadians, who had been a little more sympathetic to the Iranian position on the nuclear deal. They're under a lot of pressure right now, but they're not going to come and attack the U.S. anytime soon.
So where does this go from here?
Well, the Iranians try to wait out the U.S. elections in November, maintain social stability, and hope that Trump doesn't win. Because if you get a Democrat president, they'd be willing to go back to the terms of the old deal, which, of course, the Iranians were actually living up to the terms of. But if that's not the case, demonstrations inside Iran will grow. So there's the potential that you actually have a real crackdown and the reformists are forced out. Or the Iranians come to the table. Trump gets a big win, and he actually gets a better deal than what Obama had actually done. That is possible here. Impeachment is going to fail. And it's going to fail despite the fact that Trump has clearly committed abuses of power to try to help ensure that he wins the election. Now, once impeachment is broken as a political constraint on the American president, what's going to stop him from continuing to abuse that power in the run-up to November 2020? If he wins and it's close, the Democrats will say it's delegitimized. If he loses and it's close, Trump will say it's delegitimized. So we're entering into unprecedented territory with the U.S. election. Why is it risk number one? Because the U.S. is the world's largest economy. We are now seeing a tipping point in globalization. And that tipping point comes because of the decoupling of the United States from China, China from the United States in technology, in data, which means that unlike on trade, where we're competitors, but we both ultimately want to cooperate, we want to trade more. On AI and on data, we actually want each other to fail, right? It's becoming a zero-sum battle with the two largest economies in the world and the part of the economy that's the most advanced, that's growing the fastest, right? Obviously, that's not a good thing for the future of efficient markets, for the future of the economy, and also in terms of where global conflict goes. And a lot of countries out there, like India, are going to have to decide where they align with technologically. And I can tell you, the Indians do not want to decide between the Americans and the Chinese in technology. It's a bad position for you to be in. In order for Modi to win a majority that very few thought he could pull off in the last election, he moved away from some of those economic reforms, and he's instead leaned into Hindu nationalism. He's done that with Kashmir, and more recently he's done that on issues of citizenship, and of course in anti-Muslim policies and orientations, particularly by his home minister, 14% of the Indian population. So I haven't become anti-Modi, I wasn't pro-Modi before, but before in his first term, the priorities were clearly about economic reform at the high level and also bringing up the poor people at the low level. Now we see that those things still exist, but they're not as high a priority as the Hindu nationalism pieces that are really helping to drive the country, drive Modi's base, but also drive India farther apart, creating kind of polarization. And that clearly isn't good for the Indian economy. I would say now, particularly among the Democrats in the United States, the human rights issues in India, they're starting to get comparisons with the way the Chinese are treating the Uyghurs. That's ridiculous for a country, a democratic institutions, checks and balances like India. For example, on the conservative side, the fact that the Indians are moving ahead with the purchases of the S-400 missile defense system from the Russians makes the defense industry feel like they can't work with Indians as closely, might lead to some sanctions. And of course, one of the most important anchors of U.S.-India concrete economic cooperation is in the defense sector. So I think for both sides, the Indians have actually taken some hits.